much for having me. You've heard the introduction, so my name is Jason and I run a digital creative company in London called The Swarm. People say, what's a digital creative company? And I say it's a company that lets me do whatever I want because I started it. I'm not actually joking when I say that. It's we work across all sorts of platforms, media types, and technologies. And that's really integral to what we do because I always think that you've got to use the right tools to tell the right stories and the right design process attached. So all of our projects are really varied. What I'm going to be talking about tonight is something that we're becoming very interested in, which is called the Internet of Things. Before I had this company, I was working at the BBC until I got the axe running the mobile department. And so I got involved in a lot of this type of mobile media. And that's really cool. And we still do, apps and games and all sorts of stuff like that. But I started thinking about, and there's a lot of work kind of going on behind the scenes that I think a lot of us aren't all that aware of, about other types of mobile media and other types of mobile devices that are starting to kind of crop up around us, a bit like the tribbles in Star Wars, in Star Trek, if you remember that. And I think we're about to see a real change in the way that media works, and I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit tonight and make some forecasts about how that might make changes to some of the everyday types of media experiences that we have, like, how it's going to change a weather report, how it's going to change a cooking show, and some of that type of stuff. So as I take you through this, I'm not saying it's all happening right this minute, but I do think it will come down the road. And it may seem futuristic, but bear with me, because at the end, we'll kind of come back to what some of the practical applications of this stuff might start to look like. And if I lose you at any point, just stick your hands up and ask questions. I don't mind if you interrupt me, just as long as you're not throwing food. So if I asked you guys if you wanted to go out and play a mobile video game with me, who would want to wear a device that looks like this, like a belt with a sort of giant thumb straps to them? Anyone? So then why, when we go out to play outside and play a mobile game, do we expect people to do this? It's completely unnatural, right? It's almost as unnatural as that. So what I'm starting to think about is what are these other sort of mobile devices around us? And I think just to sort of put it in context, these are prototype hoodies, but they're called neighbor hoodies. And what they've done, the people who invented these, this isn't something that we've done, but I think it's brilliant, is they've stitched mobile telephony technology into the hoodies and then put, I don't know if you can see little circles near the ears. They've put speakers inside the hood. So what happens is when you put the hoodie on, you go into the game, and it takes you into a game of tag with the other people nearby who are also wearing the hoodies, because it uses the location and the sound equipment to guide you through trying to find people. So it becomes a complete digital game of tag, but you're actually immersed in the game. And the device that you're interacting with is something that's completely natural for going out and playing tag and playing chase, rather than walking around with a 500-pound smartphone in front of you while you're trying to chase people and fall over and smash it, especially if you're as clumsy as I am. This is an app that we built when we launched a company called TubeTap. And the idea behind it is that in London, if you're delayed by more than 15 minutes on the tube and it's their fault, they owe you a refund. The only difficulty is that you have to sit and make a note of what time you were delayed, which line you were on, what stations you were in between, da-da-da-da. Then remember to go home, write them a letter, spend money on a stamp to post the request to them, and then maybe you get something back. But what we did is we took all of the data out of TfL's API, which is their big data set about all the journey times, and we created a very simple interface for timing your journeys, and it automatically compares them to how long it should have taken when you basically check in and check out of the stations. And then if you've been delayed unnecessarily, it lets you know, and it just shoots off an email request right away, and a check comes in the post a few days later or a few weeks later, depending on how backlogged they are. So it seems like a really good idea, hopefully. But I think this is still, again, the wrong place, because I think that software should be on the Oyster card system. It's very unnatural. It's a very unnatural interaction when you're rushing for a train to have your ticket in one hand put that through the thing, and then, oh, I have to do this too. Why isn't it just integrated? And we know for a fact that the Oyster card system could run that software, but they won't take it from us. We'd offer to give it to them for free, and they won't. They've got a £34 million slush fund of refunds that they don't give people every year. So that has something to do with it. So all of this technology that I'm talking about, Internet of Things is one of the words for it, but I think a word that, Internet of Things doesn't actually mean very much because everything is a thing. So another word that the analysts have been using that I think is quite useful, although I don't think it will catch on, but it's useful in terms of understanding a subphone, which means a wireless device that has mobile telephony technology in it, but that isn't primarily used for phone calls or text messages. It's not a phone that's on a submarine. Who's got one?
Submarine.
No, a subphone. Anyone? Yeah? Okay. I think the numbers will go up when I show you a few in a minute. And if, just to show you that this is real and that I'm not just imagining it, in 2010, the wireless networks in the States ended up reaching a point where there were more things connecting to them, and the things were subscribing at a faster rate than people. And to give you some newer numbers, these numbers are a little bit older from 2011, but it still makes the point that we're reaching a point where there's more of these connected devices around than we think, and certainly more than people. So we're now at a point where there's about 2 point something per person globally, which means that in the West and in Europe, it's higher than that. And depending on whose numbers you look at, it's different. And a lot of these are silent objects that you don't even realize you're interacting with. They're things that are counting when you come in the door of a big public building like this and making records of that and putting that information into some sort of internet system for someone. It's devices that are telling cities where the buses are. It's devices that are checking that the water pressure is constantly okay in the public plumbing systems. So a lot of these connected devices are very, very simple and are just giving out very little basic traces of data, which might seem useless at first, just saying, the bus is here, the bus is here, the bus is here. But when you look at that across a whole city and you look at the speed of those points, it actually starts to become really, really interesting, and you can start to do stuff with it. So the fact that one train is delayed isn't that interesting, but when we were able to take all of that data about all of the train delays and start giving the public access to it, then it starts to turn into a sort of interesting system, an interesting application. This is one visualization. I'm sorry that the resolution is not that great, but hopefully this is Japan. And after the earthquake and nuclear disaster that they had, I think that's 2 years ago now, people were given Geiger counters to see if the radiation levels in their homes were safe. And what they did from there was they were wirelessly connecting onto the wireless networks of those people's homes. So suddenly you could visualize where there were unsafe levels of radiation all over, because those Geiger counters were silently saying, what the radiation readings were at all times. And so if you imagine, if you could cross this data set with the data set, with the navigation system in your car, you'd actually be able to create a safety application that wouldn't take you to any place where there was unsafe data. So, I'm just trying to show you how this wireless technology, when it starts to become embedded in more and more of the things around us, that is the things that are the Internet of Things, it can start to create some really interesting experiences. Like I said, who thinks they've got some of these? There's one over here, two. Okay, I'm going to show you some that might not seem as surprising as you think. Who's got one of those? Someone's got to have an iPod Touch and a Kindle in this room, where we have a very unrepresentative room. Other e-readers? Okay. What about, anyone have these? Nike Plus or Adidas Me? These are hardware that you integrate with your exercise wear, and it collects data from your body, and it can adjust the entertainment experience that you're having and put data into your computer, which it then publishes to a website. Maybe not completely connected in real time, but it's still connecting, taking feedback from your body and feeding that into an entertainment experience, feeding that into an information experience online. And connected cars are something that's coming up. This is a ridiculous illustration, but it's just to make the point that these are futuristic cars. I actually saw a video which I tried to incorporate, but I couldn't. BMW is doing a lot around what they call the connected drive, and that's all about, particularly for city drivers who can't, you can make the cars go faster and faster, but you can't drive them any better. So they're trying to say, what can we do to enhance the drive? Well, we can connect it so you can constantly and safely get different parts of data and entertainment mediated through your driving experience. And they're showing all sorts of stuff where data gets projected onto the windshield, and you can interact with it. There's stuff going on consoles in the car. I don't know how you're going to drive without being distracted, but that's not my thing to deal with. But also, really, really interesting is the CEO of Audi Renault gave the, sorry, I might get this backwards now. Two big car CEOs. One of them gave a keynote speech at the Le Web conference last year, which is the big French technology conference, and one of the most influential conferences, talking all about connected cars and how the car is going to be the next frontier for connected entertainment, connected content. And the other one was that the chairman of one of the other big car manufacturers was saying that he believes that that is their main strategic priority, and the next frontier for really improving the driving experience is about connecting it to the internet, connecting it to data, connecting it to content. And there's loads of people playing in this space, and this is a project that I've been involved with for the last couple of years. It's called Sunday Drive. It's actually based in America, associated with my accent. And what it does is it helps recreational drivers find scenic ways of driving places. So they can report a scenic route into the app and then get that back. Now, the long-term goal for this, though, is not to have people driving and doing this. Like I said, that's really unnatural. So what we're trying to do is work with telematic systems to get this built into people's cars, so that if they're out for a leisure drive, if they're out for a weekend drive, or there's traffic and they go, just get me off the motorway, I'll take the long way if it's scenic, we can help them do that.
This can all just take a new dimension in cars and drive themselves without
There's cars driving themselves in San Francisco now, apparently, from Google, which is quite scary.
The University of Oxford got a conversion pack to convert the Nissan Leaf into a self-driving car and it costs £100.
I'd rather have one from Oxford than from Google myself.
So obviously, cars can talk to each other and negotiate with each other to get space in the road and move quicker. All sorts of things can happen.
Well, there you go. I mean, and that's the point. A lot of this information is silent, and I'll come on to this. But a lot of the conversation right now is what they call machine-to-machine language and machine-to-machine data. And so the things are interacting with each other, but the people and the things aren't interacting so much yet. So I'll come on to that. But yeah, it is happening. I'm going to show you a short video, which is just to, again, give you an idea of where some of this data comes from, where some of the stories that you can play with are, and what some of the services that are starting to emerge are. It is an IBM promotional video. They have a bigger budget for making cool videos than I do. So I hope you don't mind. I'm not doing an advert for them. And we won't watch the whole thing. Oh, that's